All right, ladies and gentlemen. All right, if I can have everyone's attention, can everybody hear me loud and clear? In the back, thumbs up in the back. Okay, awesome. All right, well, welcome everybody to Charlottesville Inclusive Media's Can I Talk to You Cville Forum on Charlottesville City Schools and the CPS MOU, the Memorandum of Understanding. So want to thank also Trailblazer Elementary School for opening their doors and welcoming us in. So good evening and welcome once again. And for those who weren't here for the housekeeping, I am Charles Lewis. I'm with Charlottesville Inclusive Media, and thank you for being here tonight for this edition of Can I Talk to You Cville. So if you're new to this, these forums are designed to bring the community together for honest conversations on important topics. And tonight, we're focusing on how Charlottesville City Schools is working with the Charlottesville Police Department to bring officers back into the school. All right, and also want to thank our participants that will be joining us as panelists, as well as the leading the discussion in the breakout rooms. So for tonight, we have Dr. Gurley, the Charlottesville Superintendent, Dr. Jeffrey Aaron, Juvenile Justice and Behavioral Health Program Manager for the Virginia Department of Behavioral Health. School board representatives, Amanda Burns, Lisa Torres, and I believe Emily Dooley is here as well. And with the CPD, the representative is Lieutenant Greg Wade. We have Lisa Thurau, I hope I pronounced that right, with Strategies for Youth. We have Rodney Jordan, the CMS principal, Justin Malone, the CHS principal, Lamont Trotter from LMA, he's the principal at Lugo McGinnis Academy. All right, and then for our breakout groups and the participants, we have Kim Powell, school board representative, as well as Amanda Burns, Lisa Torres, Rachel Rasnack, Bianca Johnson, Denise Johnson, Jody Murphy, Lisa Thurau, Rodney Jordan, Justin Malone, and Lamont Trotter as well. All right, so we know that this topic can bring out many different perspectives and experiences. That's why we've set up some simple norms to help guide our time together. All right, number one, let's listen with respect. Right? Give your full attention when someone is speaking. Number two, let's share space. Make room for all voices. If you've spoken a lot, step back so others can step forward. We need to hear from everyone, not just the loudest voices. All right, number three, assume best intent. Remember, we're here to learn from each other, even when we disagree. And fourth, allow for non-closure. All right, which means we may not have all the answers tonight, and that is to be expected. This is a process. All right, and tonight's structure is simple. So we're going to start with a short presentation about how we got to this point. And then after that, we will have our panelists up, and then we'll go into breakout groups where you can hear more directly from school and police department personnel and share your own experiences. So, and your thoughts and your ideas as well. And then finally, we'll come back together to hear highlights from each group. And also, as stated, dinner is here for you all to enjoy. So remember that when we go to the breakouts, that's another chance to get more of that as well, or your first if you haven't had any. And there will be surveys as well that we'll give before you all leave, because we want to hear from you. No, not everybody is not comfortable all the time speaking in group settings, and that's fine. So we also have surveys as well to get your feedback about how tonight went, and also maybe some specifics if you don't get to share about the topics for tonight. All right. So as of now, I want to bring up so we can hear from Beth Chuck, the Supervisor of Community Relations for Charlottesville City Schools. Please give her a hand, please.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity, and I appreciate all of you coming tonight. I hope that by the end of the evening, we'll feel like we understand each other better and that we're making progress towards an MOU that really serves our community well. I'm really just here to give kind of a little bit of history about the development of the MOU, some of the big ideas that are in the MOU, next steps as we move forward, things like that. And I'm just setting the table so that when the panelists come up or when you go into your breakout groups. We have some basic information that we're kind of drawing from, or that you hear things from how just the big picture. Let's see. I might need some help with the slides. Okay, here we go. All right, the first slide is really a timeline, and I'm hoping with the light that you all can see this, but I dated it back to June 2020. That's when the school board voted to remove SROs from our safety plan. And honestly, that process was a lot like the process that we've had right now, where the school board made a vote and then created a committee to get public feedback and to develop a process moving forward. That's very similar to what we've experienced this time. In 2021, we actually implemented that model. Just like this time, we have a time to kind of think through what this new model will look like. And so that's a similar thing to what we're doing this time. From 2022 to 2025, we have been kind of implementing that model and working towards improvements in that model. But even so, as you've heard the schools say over the years, we still encounter some pain points, but in the model where police are called to the schools when needed versus when police are in the schools full time. So at that point, after a lot of, and I would say from 2020 to 2025, this has been just an ongoing conversation in our community. We have had surveys, we have had focus groups, we've had forums, we've had a lot of different school board meetings that have focused on school safety over the years. So this has been a real ongoing collaborative effort with the community just to share feedback and listen to concerns from staff, from students, from the community. In March, the school board voted to restore SROs to the safety model while keeping our care and safety assistants and our strong mental health staff. At that point, the superintendent, and before that, the school board had asked Dr. Gurley to create a committee to develop possible models that would call for the return of SROs. And at that point, he expanded that committee, and we really, in earnest, began working on a draft MOU and gathering more public feedback. Throughout the summer, that committee has been looking at other MOUs, has been drafting the MOU, has been meeting with focus groups, has been at events all across the city to gather feedback. And now about maybe 3 weeks ago, we published the draft MOU along with a form for feedback. We're holding this event, and we've already heard ideas from the community about how to make that MOU better. And that's really what we're here for tonight. So,
Can I just ask a process question really fast? At what point is the community going to be allowed to chime in? Will that part come later? That will come later. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. So what's in our safety model now? I'm not going to talk through all these things, but I do want to focus on the fact that it's a lot of community building and relationship building, that we doubled the number of mental health professionals when we implemented this model, and that mental health staffing is well above state requirements. It's well above state averages. Our care and safety assistants, or CSAs, are in the hall trained in a variety of youth mental health and de-escalation skills to be an extra set of hands. And then we do, number 4, it might be blocked by the table, but number 4 is that we still continue to partner with the police. That is state required, and that is in every safety model. The way it works now is that we make service calls to the police for them to come for state required tasks or for safety situations. The last 2 I'm not going to bother to talk about right now. The big question, why are we returning SROs to the schools? This is the letter on the right. Many of you received it when we sent it out back in March after the board voted. And I've pulled out the 4 points that we have kind of repeated. And I've learned through various feedback that folks might like a little bit of unpacking of these 4 reasons. So I'm going to go through that. I'm going to try to keep it moving. But the first one is that educators, people like principals, people like CSAs, people like our teachers are being asked to do things that require expertise that the police are trained in and educators are not trained in. And some of those tasks are so fluid or so variable from day to day that it's not reasonable to expect a school educator to be fully trained in the range of tasks that police do. So that's that first idea there. And for any of these, I think there is a way to delve deeper with questions later in the evening. So I hope you'll follow up with anything you have questions about. And I will also say, anything that you have questions about, the Google form on our website has an option like, would you like a reply? And if you check that box, we'll try to get back to you with an answer to your question. The second idea was that instead of having specially selected, specially trained officers who are in the schools, instead we currently have the officer who is available to come to the schools. And that feels like a deficit to the school staff who would like to have a person with whom who knows the school culture, who knows the school staff, who knows the students in the school, the families in the school. The third is that the staff faces some administrative burdens of calling and scheduling police for appointments and things like that happen sometimes multiple times a day in multiple schools a day. So that scheduling burden and that work of staying connected and keeping one another up to date, that is a bigger burden under this system. And then the final point is just that in a critical situation, we would not already have a police officer on site. So those are the four items that have come up repeatedly. The board has asked us to find solutions to those problems. And somehow over the years, those points persist. Our staff continue to relay that those points, despite what we've tried, special phones, special practices, special procedures, those pain points do not go away. This is just a brief list of the various CCS departments that were involved in this process for the working group. It also involved community members and the CPD. But this is, I think the point here is that it's not just one person, it's not just one leader at the school who has been active in this. And I'm gonna rush through this one, but through the spring, summer, that's the work that this working group did to research other area MOUs, to gather feedback from students and community members and other focus groups, to start drafting an MOU, to take time. At the times it felt like we were going line by line through the MOU to say, is this the best we can do? And that brings us to a couple of weeks ago when we published the MOU, and now we're asking you to go through it line by line to say, is this the best we can do? And we appreciate the folks who have given us workable suggestions moving forward. And then in the fall, the next step will be for this working group, the staff, to kind of continue to go through that MOU. We'll give a report at the school board meeting in about a week. Now I will just give some big picture understandings of what's in the MOU. And the big idea is that schools will continue to do what schools have done in the past, which is to take care of discipline matters, which is to set culture and to establish routines. And the police will continue to handle what the police have done in the past, which is to handle the state-required school-related police tasks and to be on site for emergencies. How many SROs are we talking about? 2 at CHS, 1 at CMS, and 1 supervisor who might float as needed.
These things continue to change in the paperwork that's being sent out because it's represented in different ways in different places. And I find that to be very confusing. And whether it is an idea I'm going to assume that you need to get it right because some places it's listed as 2, and some places here it looks like 4. So there are definitely some things that really need to be ironed out because that's either misrepresentation or sloppy work.
Thank you. I think it's also probably a history that we keep an artifact of old work up on the website so that you can see how it develops. And so I think probably a year or 2 ago when we first started talking, when the boards first started talking about this, I think initially they were talking about 2. And then when they asked us to flesh out the plan, it is 4. And so I will take responsibility for going back and looking to see where it may still say 2.
At this meeting, print it out.
We'll have time for feedback.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for raising that.
Like are being shared in a way
Mhm.
that are to a large group
Mhm.
that I believe are misrepresenting.
Mhm.
Whether, and again, I do want to respect,
Mhm.
like, I want to
This is
respect.
just a presentation. though.
I
We
hear,
don't
but
have
there are
time
things
now.
that don't seem like they are, like,
Mhm.
they
We got
are,
you.
they are problematic.
Okay.
I just want that to be said while we're in a large group.
Thank you. And where you find things, I invite you to email me, Beth, Chuck, and I want to make it right. So I know almost every person in this room has probably gotten a lot of emails from me over the years, and I invite you to let me know because I do want to make that right. All right. This has been a big talking point. Will the police carry guns? And the answer is yes. We can talk about that more tonight. That is CPD policy. It is kind of the national standard for SROs. It is, there are precautions that our committee has spent a long time learning about the precautions that the holsters and the ways that police are trained to keep that gun safe. So that's, I just want to acknowledge that because it has been a big question before this group and before this committee. Ways we are working to keep youth out of the juvenile justice system. I think one thing, and again, I agree with Mr. Lewis, that this is a topic where we have differences of opinions. I think one thing you will find consensus on in Charlottesville, whether you're talking to the Commonwealth attorney or the police or the schools or parents, is that we want to do everything we can to minimize youth interactions in the juvenile justice system. And what that looks like on the school end is that the schools will maintain control of discipline. What that looks like on the police or the city side is that currently, and they already are working to favor restorative and pre-diversionary practices. And one thing this MOU has done is give us an opportunity to look at those with fresh eyes to see how we can build them out better or stronger. Who does the hiring is another question we've heard. This will be a CPD officer, so it will be city hiring, and the schools will have a voice in that. Because I think the single loudest feedback we have heard from our engagement with the community over the summer is that the person matters and the training matters. So if the training is so important, the question has come up, why wouldn't you train all Charlottesville police officers? And I think, first of all, we have a police officer tonight who can speak to that. But I think what I've heard and learned is that CPD officers are trained with many of these skills. But I do know that schools have a unique culture. Many of you have gotten messages to me with words like indoor instruction or stay put, stay tuned. Or schools have unique processes for handling discipline or the various routines to help various students succeed. And all of those are very helpful for a police officer coming into a school, whether it's for an administrative task or to resolve an issue. And to have a new person in the morning and a different person in the afternoon and a different person the next day, I don't think it is, what we've learned from the police is that it's not realistic to expect every officer to know the ins and outs of school culture and to know all the nomenclature that schools use, and especially in a high pressure situation. But again, the police can speak to that more than I can. Mr. Lewis, do you want to take questions? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Actually, I'd say that's actually one of, and we can speak to that more directly tonight. I don't know the answer to that personally right now, but I do know that very question has been one of the questions and suggestions that we've had. So if it is not clear enough in the MOU, you can expect that it will get spelled out. Thank you. All right, so now we're looking at an implementation timeline. We're in August where we're gathering feedback. We have the school board report on the feedback on September 4th. In September and October, we're working to finalize the MOU and build out the accompanying standard operating procedures. Ms. Bianca Johnson gave me some shorthand for talking about the difference in those. She said the MOU is the what, and the standard operating procedures are the how. In the winter, the city will go into budget season. And then this spring, we would have hiring and selection of these and training of the SROs in time for an August opening of school. So as I said, we've already started listening. We've been listening this summer, but particularly this feedback on these slides reflects things that we have heard even in the 3 weeks since we published the draft MOU. I'm not going to go through them all. These slides will be available on our website if you can't see them or it's a lot to absorb in a short time. The next slide I want to show would show just that I think with even a cursory review, the leadership of the school and the school board and our various committee members have said, these are mostly really good actionable ideas that we can sign off on. 2 examples of that. One is a real concern for our immigration and refugee students. And even though the MOU already has a bit of an opt-out, they want to spell it out even more clearly, given everything that's going on in the country right now, to really spell out clearly that we will not jeopardize or compromise our immigrant or refugee students through this program. And another would just be requiring training in special care for our students with disabilities. that's just another example of one where it just seems like if we haven't spelled that out clearly enough, thank you for that feedback, and we will work on that. So getting back to that question of immigration, with everything going on in our country, is this really the right time to be having this conversation? We definitely are following national developments closely. And the MOU, even as it is, even if it were approved and signed today, has an exit clause saying if local or national events conflict with our goals for this program, we or the CPD could end the agreement. So that safety measure was already baked in there, but we've heard from the community that they'd like it to be even clearer. And so that will be an action step for this process. All right, and since we're here to have honest conversations about real topics, what happens when something goes wrong? I'm sorry, there's another hand up.
What assurance do we have that the CPD is not going to enter into cooperation agreements with ICE besides the chief's word?
So again, this is not a time for questions. This is a presentation.
Yeah, but
it's already been decided that you will have panelists.
But I'm wondering if there's something beyond just a verbal.
So once again, we're not taking questions right now. If you do that, we'll be way off the time. So but you will have time to dialogue with the representative. Don't worry about that.
Okay. Thank you. And we know that issues will arise. Issues have arisen for the past 5 years with our current safety program, and we continue to troubleshoot. We continue to try to make things better. And one thing we've heard from the feedback so far in the right, it talks about ways that we will create ongoing feedback mechanisms so that we can continue to hear from our students, from our staff, from the community. But also there's other feedback mechanisms where our administrators can continue to troubleshoot, can continue to remain in dialogue with police to work on continuous improvement. So I have been communicating about Charlottesville City Schools for a long time. I have talked about why we are removing SROs from our schools. I have talked about why we are returning SROs to our schools. I've heard very many opinions from people of various different perspectives for every decision the schools have made about safety. One thing that has always struck me and given me, frankly, a lot of comfort as we move through this program is just how much consensus our community has about what we do want to see in a safety program. We do want to see a safety program that is built on positive school culture with strong relationships. We do want to see a safety program that has a foundation of strong mental health supports. We do want to teach the behaviors we want to see. We do want to use a restorative and a learning approach whenever possible. And we do want to connect and make sure our schools and community stay connected, because in reality, the schools are a huge part of the community. The community is a huge part of schools. So that's the end of my presentation. And I would say that if I have gone through any of this too quickly, if you have other questions, if you want to find that Google form where you can ask a question where you did not get your answer tonight, you can find all of that at charlottesvilleschools.org or at the QR code. And we will keep talking to you and we will keep answering questions at that point. Yes, the slides are not yet posted, but they will be posted along with a recording of the evening as well. Thank you. All right, Mr. Lewis, thank you very much.
Thank you, Beth Chuck. So appreciate the presentation, and once again, to just remember that like that the decision has been made as she went through the timeline, but we are here tonight, right, to be able to have a community dialogue on what it can look like and what it should look like, right? So this is really specifically about that MOU, right? The memorandum of understanding, so that we all do understand, what this means for us as a community, as families, and for our students. And so once again, as we bring the panelists up, I want everyone to remember just sort of our ground rules to make sure that all perspectives and experiences are heard at the given times. 1, listen with respect. 2, share space. 3, assume best intent. And 4, allow for non-closure. So without further ado, we'd like to bring up the panelists. Thank you all. And so we'll do quick introductions. And then we are asking for the panelists to try to keep answers or comments to about a minute so we can stay focused. And so we have some questions for you all, about 4 of them that we'll try to get through. And then what we'll do again, we will be going to the breakout groups to where the smaller groups will be easier, for everybody to be able to more share their perspectives and to have a more fruitful conversation. It'll be a more controlled environment. So I think that's going to be best overall for any dialogue that needs to take place on any particular issue presented. All right, and just so you guys know, as well, the green means it's on. So if you would rather have it muted until you speak, you can press the button and it should turn red. All right. All right. So once again, if you would mind, we'll go around real quick, and if you could just give your name and your position with the city schools. If you would mind going first for us, just your name and position with the city schools.
I have no position with the city schools. My name's Lisa Thoreau, and I'm from Strategies for Youth.
Yes.
My name is Jeffrey Aaron. I'm a psychologist with the Virginia Department of Behavioral Health and Developmental Services.
Good evening. My name is Justin Malone. I'm the principal of Charlottesville High School.
Good evening. My name is Rodney Jordan. I'm the principal at Charlottesville Middle School.
Good evening. My name is Amanda Burns. I am on the Charlottesville City School Board.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Lieutenant Greg Wade with the Charlottesville Police Department, working with our Community Services Bureau.
Good evening, everyone. Lamont Trotter, Principal, Lugo McGinnis, our Alternative School Program.
Good evening. Royal Gurley, Superintendent of Schools.
Hello, my name is Lisa Torres. I'm on the Charlottesville City School Board.
All right. Thank you all. Thank you all. So the first question that we have for you all in regards to our topic this evening is why are we adding school resource officers back into the safety model? And again, not everyone is expected to respond, but if we could at least get a couple of responses to each question. Again, just try to keep them around a minute, please, as concise as possible. But why are we adding school resource officers back into the safety model?
I can answer at least part of that. The safety model being augmented to include school resource officer acknowledges that schools are already in conversation with law enforcement over a number of different things. And so there are law enforcement based experiences that happen at the school, and where the school is responsible for interacting with law enforcement. So the school resource officer model helps to bring a level of refinement and alignment and relationship with those agencies back into the school.
Good afternoon again. Having worked at a school division where I was in the alternative program and we had resource officers, the model that we're looking here definitely is an opportunity to bring back relationships within those particular buildings. I think of a 3-prong approach of connection, community, and comfort. And so having those 3 prongs with our school resource officers in any setting is paramount. Thank you.
Thank you.
And just speaking from personal experience, my second year as principal here in Charlottesville, we had a swatting incident. And so unfortunately, during that incident, there were guns pointed at me as the principal. And I think that had we had an SRO in the building, that communication could have been different with CPD to prevent that from happening.
All right, thank you for those responses. Could someone address what the primary role of school resource officers in Charlottesville City Schools, and what would make you feel like that this is working? So the primary role of SRO is what, and then what would make you feel like that it is in fact positively impactful?
So I'll start that off. The primary role, as we see it at CPD, in concert with our partners at city schools, is helping to increase school safety, building relationships with everyone in the school community, with the educators who are responsible for teaching and helping the kids along their path through school.
If you can get a little closer.
Sorry, is that better? I'll just start from the beginning real quick. Increasing school safety, building relationships. Those are the two main pillars, if you will. We want to ensure that the officers who are in the schools have a great relationship with both the educators who work in the schools, that's everyone from administration down through the teachers, as well as the student body as a whole. We had talked a little earlier, it had been brought up a little earlier about the benefits of having comfort and familiarity with school culture. That is something that we absolutely want to see our SROs have.
And in addition to what Lieutenant Wade was sharing, absolutely, again, on this space of the relationships, but also those resource officers completing those administrative roles that they are expected to do as it relates to the safety of our building and the safety of our children each and every day, that they are brought to us in the schools the same way that we allow them to return back home, which is safe. Thank you.
I think as I understand it from attending meetings over the last several months, the purpose of SROs in the public schools is to address things having to do with violence occurring within the school, or risks of it, or risks of weapons coming into the school that teachers and school educators don't feel equipped to, nor do they want to deal with. It's also an effort to, you'll know it's working well if the guidance put out, the training that's been offered and implemented, and the school community feels that there's a clear divide between law enforcement refraining from any interaction having to do with discipline, that its priorities are the same as those in the school of having kids graduate from school and enjoy school and not view law enforcement as a source of fear in the school. And sometimes providing others, providing a group of people who I have seen be very good at translating what teachers want from kids, what administrators want from kids, in a way that administrators and teachers aren't always so good at sharing with kids.
Thank you. Thank you. So, I actually think that the example that that Principal Jordan gave is definitely pertinent to this conversation. So a question is, what are the safeguards that are currently in place to protect a student's rights and safety? And then what would be different and what will stay the same, once the SROs are in place?
So I'll start that off. So currently, if there is a situation where we need to contact the police, whoever is closest to the incident, or let's just say if we need to call the police, whoever's closest to the incident, we want that person to be able to call, because there's a series of questions on the other end, and we need that person who is closest to the incident to be able to speak to it. And so so one person does that. We also go into one of our protocols, which is a stay put, stay tuned, and that allows us to keep everyone in their classes until the matter is resolved. And then we also communicate with families and with the school if possible, just so that everyone knows what is going on, and we give as many details as we are able to at that time, but we do not discuss names and things of that nature.
And then from the CPD perspective, our response is obviously varied. There are daily responses that we have, assisting with state mandated tasks such as threat assessments. There are also more emergent things. Mr. Jordan's example of the call that we were all on a few years ago is a great example of how an SRO can play a vital role in ensuring that information is communicated clearly and effectively, both by being on site and also by having that firsthand relationship with the educators in the school where they're placed. The other part to this is that relationship. Being able to not only know the officer that is handling whatever the call for service is, but also understanding that they're always going to be right there and ready to help out. As it stands now, we have a great cadre of officers who are always willing to help out. They're threat assessment trained. That means they've been through training on how to perform threat assessments. The issue that we'll run into occasionally, though, is that these officers are also tasked with patrol division responsibilities. So when a threat assessment comes up or another emergency comes up where they're needed to respond to the school, we're having to say, okay, we're going to move you from patrol. We're going to assign you to the school. We're going to allow you to complete that task, and then you're going to go back to patrol. Having the SRO there as a purpose-built, kind of built-in officer at the school completely alleviates any issues that could arise with timing or the logistics of moving an officer from one assignment to another. And again, gets right back to the whole idea of community and relationship building, which is kind of the cornerstone of what we're trying to work at here.
School systems that rely on multiple different officers to respond to calls for service, or school systems that don't use SROs and simply use calls for service to officers in states that don't require any training of officers to work with youth, much less any training to have SROs be prepared to work with youth, leads to a lot of escalation of very minor incidents, because the streets are not the same as the school. There are different expectations and standards, as there well should be. And so to have people, as Virginia requires, who are extensively trained in how to be a school resource officer, who are trained by people like Dr. Aaron on adolescent development and how youth respond and need to be treated differently as a function of their adolescent development and brain changes, is critical for the safety of everybody in the school. And if you don't have that, you're risking getting untrained folks with no policies for anything for working with youth coming into the school and assuming that youth are miniature adults, which, as we know from the Supreme Court, we're not supposed to view them as.
Gotcha. Thank you. So the last
Can I
point
just
that
add one point to that?
All right, please quickly.
Which is beyond training, there's relationships. And the best way to de-escalate a situation with a young person is to know that person, have a relationship with them.
Relationship. So before the last question that I had, I want to make sure that we don't gloss over before we go into the deeper discussions and perspectives from the community, is that the safeguards, right? And I want us to really think about, the literal words, the safeguards of students involved in their rights, right? Because there's a real concern about officers being physically in the schools and how that could contribute to the school to prison pipeline, right? So how do you all see the issue being addressed, right? When it comes to the students' rights and them feeling safe?
Thank you for the question. One thing that we definitely already have in place is our student rights and responsibilities that govern how discipline and measures will be disseminated or practiced with students. I can honestly say it will not be the responsibility of that resource officer to help and deal with particular discipline measures. That will lean heavily on the building administrators. Equally, when there are infractions and a resource officer may need information, that's where the collaboration between the resource officer and the school administrator will be hand in hand as relates to information that may be needed for particular measures. Thank you.
I also want to piggyback on that the response to student behavior is the primary responsibility of the building administrator. And I think that we need to continue to say that, and people need to continue to hear that that the response to student behavior is the primary responsibility of the building administrator. And so as it relates to conversations about the school to prison pipeline, what we do in this moment is to continue to do what we say we are going to do. For example, we are creating alternatives to suspensions. We are using our student behavior and responses. We are ensuring that we are always embedding these social emotional pieces when responding to student behavior. So there's so many tiers and layers of things that we do when engaging with students. And we know that it is not the responsibility of the school resource officer to manage student behavior.
I would add that in terms of the officers' responses, they also receive quite extensive training, not only in what their role is and is not in terms of being involved in discipline, but also related to student mental health, to the influence of trauma, to working directly with students with disabilities, to developmental influences and others. So there's really quite extensive training that's mandated by the state. The other thing I would add regarding the perception of safety is there are data that answer the question about how students perceive school resource officers in the school safety audit that's done each year. And historically, it included Charlottesville data because Charlottesville had SROs. Lately, it hasn't, but there are consistent findings. My understanding is in Charlottesville when the SROs were here, and certainly across the state, that SROs presence does make students by and large, in fact, to an overwhelming degree, feel safer according to their own report, and contributes according to students' perceptions to positive school climate.
Because I did dig into that, and that's what it looked like. There's like 1,943, something like that, of those reports from Virginia, and the majority of them are filled out by the administrator. I don't know whether
Okay.
I didn't look at the entire thing or not.
Oh, yeah, we understand. Okay.
I don't.
Thank you. Gotcha. We totally understand that perspective. So
I don't want to get into, I know this isn't the time for it. I think it might be useful just to note that those are student responses. Administrator and staff responses are also collected, but those are separate.
Okay.
I would add that it's the community that has to be completely involved and responding to how it's working. You have to always defend your liberties. You have to always defend what's happening to your children. I say that as a parent who had a child in public schools in Massachusetts. This is true for special ed teachers as it is for SROs. You have to be alert and caring to what's happening to your child and have the wherewithal to push it and question it.
Absolutely. All right. Thank you. So, all right. So there will be questions. So we do have like a full itinerary. So here is our hope. Our hope is that enough of this gets addressed to where some questions get answered. What does not get answered, we're about to tackle that right now, because we are going to go into the smaller groups to where it is more of a discussion base. So please understand that it was a presentation to bring us up to speed, and there were set questions based on what we have at hand to try to get all those things answered, right? So the next step is, in fact, to get a deeper understanding, right? And following those your individual groups, we will reconvene in here, right? And so there will be the notes that are given from the breakout groups, and hopefully there will be enough time to where we can then expound upon that as well, which would include any further feedback that the community has, that the families have. Yes, as long as it's related to the MOU that's at hand. Yes, because again, we have to remember that the decision has been made. Make sure everybody understands that this is about what the MOU is. So totally understand, but but the reason that we're here is for the memorandum of understanding. So that may be another discussion, another platform. So to get a deeper understanding of the board and other school level officials and gather community perspectives, concerns, and ideas through the scenario-based conversations, we will now transition to the breakout groups, which will be led by the staff from the Center for Community Partnerships at UVA. Each breakout group will have a mixture of CCS and CPD staff and community members, which is what I think everybody wants. There'll be a mix of CCS and CPD staff and community members. Each group will cover the same topics, but we are splitting into smaller groups so that everyone has a chance to engage more fully in the conversation. No matter which room you're in, you'll have the opportunity to share your perspective on the same set of questions. All right, so same questions in each group. The gym here, the North Cafeteria and the South Cafeteria, which is on the same hall. Those are the 3 locations for the breakout groups. For those joining virtually online, Dr. Johnson and another CCS staff member will be facilitating the Zoom breakout room. So you all can stay connected onto Zoom and you will see Dr. Johnson on your screen momentarily. If you brought children tonight, childcare is available in the art room, which is located directly across from the gym. And after breakouts, as I said, we'll come back together to wrap up. Volunteers are available to help direct you if you are unsure where to go. We want this to be comfortable and welcome space for everyone. So please feel free to ask for support if needed. So now we're going to breakout rooms, and please remember, we want to listen with respect, share space, assume best intent, and allow for non-closure. But again, in each room, there will be CCS and CPD representatives. So thank you. If we please can hasten along to the breakout rooms, and then following that, the facilitators will bring you back in here for the reconvening of a larger discussion. Thank you all for coming tonight and being a part of this discussion on the MOU between the CCS and CPS. And hopefully everybody was able to take a good deep breath. Hopefully everybody was able to, get up and stretch and have fruitful dialogue, because that was the point that we were trying to get to. And hopefully we trying to answer a lot of questions from the beginning. As we led into our breakout sessions to be able to have a more, fruitful dialogue. So, once again, thanks for joining us, and want to thank your facilitators from the Center for Community Partnerships, Dr. Sharika Jones-Lewis, Jessica Harris, Dr. Ben Allen, and thanks to Dr. Denise Johnson from CCS for facilitating the virtual group. So Dr. Jones-Lewis, who was in the North Cafeteria with Justin Malone, Kim Powell, and Amanda Burns, at this time, she will do her large group share out from their breakout group.
Thank you. There was a lot of feedback on what people had seen in the past that they felt like worked well and what they would like to see in the future. One of the biggest takeaways from our group is that the MOU is moving forward. There was some concern about it moving forward, but people expressed that even if it's moving forward, it doesn't seem ready. People were concerned that the standard operating procedures did not feel fully fleshed out, and that there needed to be far more community engagement and more conversations like this, where people are able to and willing to share their voices, and that should be across the spectrum. So making sure that we're not in an echo chamber where we're hearing a lot of the same voices over and over, but that everyone is heard. A second share out was around relationships, that bringing anyone into the school means that that person will be engaging with our youth, and that those relationships then matter. And so not that, as someone put it, they were going to be like a cuddly teddy bear, because that's not what they're there for, but they should be building strong, positive relationships that can then be leveraged by the students for their own benefit. One of the examples of this was sometimes students want to share something that's happened to them or happened around them with someone, and they don't feel comfortable sharing it with an officer. But we have some examples of people who had shared things like that with their former SROs. And our last big takeaway was we need to hear from students. They will be the ones engaging with these officers, and they will be the ones that if something goes wrong, and this was another point, if a mistake is made, those implications can be lifelong. So we need to be hearing from our students, not one time, not two times, but over and over in terms of what they want it to look like and feel like. What does success mean to them? We also talked about success and how to look at that, not just through a quantitative lens, but qualitatively, talking to our students, talking to our parents, talking to our teachers, and talking to our administrators about that throughout this process.
Great, thanks. I think our group had similar concerns and also similar points that were raised. There was some sort of reservation about the MOU, but given that there is this MOU in front of us, the key takeaways as to how we can make sure that that is responsive to community needs. The first is, how are we measuring impact? Being incredibly clear about metrics, not just metrics of success, but also metrics of failure. At what point do we know if this program has failed and we need to pivot? At what point do we know that we are seeing negative impacts, right? So that idea of metrics and transparency of those metrics was really important. To that point on transparency, folks felt that they have an understanding of the MOU, but want increased transparency on the MOU process. Who's on the working group, who is making these decisions, who's signing off on this MOU, and also increased transparency about funding. What is the sort of triage, where does this fall on the triage list of funding sources for the schools? To that point on transparency, there was a point raised that these SROs will have to follow CPD policy and state law that might not be explicitly stated in the MOU. So how are we making sure that community members know those policies that they have to follow, and how can those be integrated, if not in the MOU, in some transparent way to students and families? And that, to that point, more specificity in general in the MOU felt important. And the last is just a value that undergirds all of this work, recognizing that student safety first is the most important priority, and how are we acknowledging the real impact of SROs, not just talking about a piece of paper.
And as we're running out on time, the only thing that I will add is more about the transparency in terms of the metrics, make sure that it's public facing was a big talking point. But I think more importantly was the process of, in this terms of engagement, having more opportunities like this where the questions are posed from community members and then answered by either elected officials, administrators within the school district or Charlottesville Police Department, and having a more direct back and forth engagement as opposed to a facilitation of conversation. And so what we were able to generate is a list of questions that can be proposed in terms of different themes that came up and ones that we just have longstanding questions to. But I think just to underscore the big piece of it is the support for mental health professionals and having individuals in the schools that can provide the relationships, provide the de-escalation that are alternatives to police. And if it is police, how are they trained? What does that training look like? To what extent? And how is the selection process? And so just more clarity around that. And really, I don't, if anyone in the gym wants to just nod, more opportunities for this type of engagement, but where there's more opportunities for people to pose questions and generate the questions.
Thank you. Thank you all, the facilitators as well. Yes. Yes. Oh, okay. Sorry about that. You're absolutely right.
Just to add from the virtual group, one of the things that came up in multiple iterations was making sure that the roles and responsibilities of all parties are outlined very clearly, from crossing guards to CSAs to the administrators to the school resource officers to teachers to school mental health professionals. And then making the work that we're doing around restorative justice and restorative practices as visible as the work we're doing around school resource officers. And then some resources were shared on ways that we can get more information and more feedback.
So as we've had those conversations, again, I want to thank the facilitators and all that partook in that. So now, we do want to leave some time again to be able to elaborate on what's been said, what's been discussed. The panel is still here. Any comments or questions again around while we're here? We still want to keep it to less than a minute, please. Yes. So what we can, I'm sorry. Okay. Yeah. So the question is, will we have more opportunities for these discussions? Okay. Right. Got you. So unless Dr. Gurley or someone wants to elaborate on that, like what I can say is that we definitely can work towards that. Like I'm not in a position to make a promise, but I will say that these type of forums are things that we do regularly. I can promise that much. So yes.
Well, yes, you can ask me a question. And so what I would say is this, is that we have engaged our community regularly. I've seen a lot of familiar faces in this room. I've not seen every face in this room at the events, but I know in the session that I was in the gym, that people talked about, like, are we meeting people where they are? And I can tell you that many of the communities that we talked about in that group, that I was there, Ms. Powell was there. Those were not events that were created by CPD. So I know, so we've done the engagement, but this is not we will stop talking about it today. The work must continue. People will still have an opportunity to come to the table. I think every time you send an email to the school board, you get a response. You will see from this meeting where your voices will be captured. And, one thing we talked about when we debriefed at our meeting is making sure that we annotate, that people see where we've added their voices. Because if we just add and then people are like, well, where did it happen? Then there's this lack of trust. So there will be ongoing engagement to capture your voice, and we will annotate so that you can see where your voice was added.
And also the point for these discussions is to have focus groups, right? Because there will be post-event reports to go out so that everybody knows that, yeah, the notes that were taken, I was part of that group. And so, everybody is aware. But we must remember that these type of discussions are meant to be focused to address very specific issues. So I believe her hand was next. Any feedback? Okay, is there an answer or any feedback on that?
Yes, November 4th.
That a couple of things, but I'm Lisa Thoreau from Strategies for Youth. We are really strong advocates that if police interact with youth, they should have policies constraining them and training to work with youth. And some need it more than others, just like teachers, just like clinicians, right? And what I think is missing a little from this conversation is some key facts that would help clarify things. One is the kind of training which you may feel is inadequate still, but it will be more than any patrol officer gets, who is now being called in to deal with the calls for service. The other thing I think you ought to be clear about as a group is asking or explaining to Dr. Gurley and the school board how you want to be communicated with, because that's obviously not working. As we heard in our group in February of 2024, Navigator 360 had already made clear that there would be inclusion of SROs in its report to the school board. And so it sounded like this recent decision in March was a simple ratification of things that had been discussed before, but this seemed like news to the people in the group.
All right,
Right.
thank
So
you.
I'm not from here. I don't know one way or the other.
Okay.
But
we got
it's
you. We wanna-
clear.
All right, thank you. Thank you. All right, so we
it's
have more hands up.
clear-
Like, I
It's
think that
clear
answered it.
that you're having a problem with,
Okay.
getting the information out or getting the
communication.
information that you want.
All right,
And
thank you.
so
We got you.
maybe
We got
that's one way to do it.
Very clear, very clear. All right, I know your hand was up over here. And so it's more administrative basis, what she's saying. Anybody want to answer to that on the balance between it being administrative based versus student based?
They have staff who don't want to do it.
All right.
You have
So,
mental health
gotcha.
officers
Point made. And once again, that's the point where we have note takers and facilitators in these conversations. And again, like there is reviews and post events that will be reported on. So the young lady here, in green. Okay. All right. Who would like to address that or reiterate?
I mean, I think initially, when I think about that, I think about kind of how the outset of the panel conversation, which is that police and law enforcement are already engaged with our schools. And so that's not hypothetical, that is reality, right? So we on a daily basis, because our state code require it, on a variety of behaviors that are all outlined in our student rights and responsibilities and in our school policy, put us into a position of engaging with law enforcement. Now, primarily, that is around threat and threat to both others and threat to self, not only involve law enforcement, but they're also partnered with our school mental health professionals. So those features already exist. And so from my perspective and being in the building and having the direct relationship, both historically with school resource officers, as well as with Charlotte's Police Department now, the idea of the individuals that we are interacting with already being somebody who has a sense of our culture, of our work, of me, of our responsibility, of a framework that helps to support what that relationship can look like to be successful, feels like it's an improvement over just right now relying on law enforcement to whoever can come when they're called to come through.
Thank you. Yeah. All right, Mr. Gathers. I mean, do you feel that it was answered, or did you want? You feel it was it?
That was not the question, but I hear you adding that.
But it wasn't the question.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Was it, any other rebuttal? Keep moving. Right. Okay. 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 All right. Thank you. Thank you. It's understood. Was that it? So no. So we do have we have other hands up. I mean, they feel that they addressed that. So, all right. I mean, there wasn't any other. Like so he gave an answer, but we want to also get to other hands that are up as well. Mr. Gathers. Okay. Who would like? Got you. Got you. Understood, Mr. Gathers. Let's get somebody to answer it. All right, let's get somebody to answer. Whoever would like to address the timeline.
I would say, as a school board member, and somebody who asked to be part of this process, to be able to provide some feedback and concerns that mirror a lot of what you all are saying. It would be the will of the board, again, and a majority of the board that would have to slow this down. And so that is to be determined.
All right, young lady here. All right, let's be respectful. Let's be respectful. Let's let her speak. Got it. Okay. Yeah, we understand. I got you. All right. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. We got it. All right. So we're just gonna do two more because I've seen two prevalent hands up. All right. So the young lady right here in the front. Okay. All right.
Aren't allowed to have application for them because everything starts at home. And if everything ain't right at home, it's not gonna activate in any other part of their life.
All right, thank you. Let's get you an answer.
And what
I can. Okay. Thank you for bringing that up. It was discussed in our work group, and currently the Police Citizens Oversight Board is one arm, and the understanding is those SROs would fall under the same oversight. However, we have talked about developing a separate side arm that our students have a direct line, whether it's through administration or through an anonymous portal. There was even a model that we looked at out of Colorado where students had a QR code, which they can't have phones in schools, but we would develop something else that they could then share that information and report back any interactions, positive, negative, or indifferent, but a way to be able to capture that information and allow that to be part of the reporting process so that we are continuously engaging with our students, at least to get the feedback part, but then also working with our student school board reps and our previous student school board reps who are still in the school to have them engage with the student body as well. Thank you.
And
They would be able to use the same sourcing.
yeah, and I do. No,
Thank you. Thank
and
you.
I do want to address her question with regards to, in terms of oversight in the building, the principal is the chief of that building. So the police chief does not have control over what happens in that building. So, with regards to behavior, as I said earlier, behavior is the responsibility of the building principal. And so the officer does not come in the building and then decide what's going to happen with children. The officer's sole is to keep the students safe. And then when there are things that violate the law, and a lot of times, what we find is that sometimes that's people trying to, from the outside in or things of that nature. That's the officer's role. It is not to police children.
Thank you. And we have one more gentleman in the back, in the gray shirt. Thank you. Thank you for your feedback. So again, thank everybody. Again, we want to make sure that everybody realizes that the focus for tonight, again, was the MOU and getting that feedback, and that there absolutely will be post-event reports to go out so that it's very, very clear on what the overall community's expectations are. Yeah, and as Dr. Gurley said, you're absolutely right. This isn't the end of the conversation. This was one focus group on a specific topic. And you're right, showing up at school board meetings and all of that good stuff is what is expected of families and communities and whatnot. So thank you all. And we do have one of our vendors here with her hand up, Sandra from Charlottesville United for Public Education. Gotcha. Thank you. Mhm. Yes. Absolutely. Mhm. Yes. Yeah, thank you. Thank you for that. And again, that's the point for being here, is to keep engaging in the process, right? As we go through this. Because again, we're talking about school year 2026 as well. So be many meetings, many meetings. So once again, thank Trailblazer Elementary, thank the community, the families, the panelists from CPD as well as CCS. Want to our vendors out front who may still be out there as well with this voter info, public school info, so forth. And want to thank Mariel Lewis as well, who took care of some of our children tonight, right? Got to thank her. And thank you all. Thank you all for being here and caring. And sharing this space with us. There's probably still some food left as well, by the way. And the QR code, lastly, the QR code here is where you can give event feedback. And as I said, if you registered, there will be follow-up email as well, as far as the reports from tonight.
Mr.
Right?
Lewis.
So it's continuing engagement.
Mr. Lewis, if we could, just a moment.
Can I get your attention, please, please? We hadn't
Can we
quite
get a couple
dismissed.
minutes? Time out.
These are the closing comments. We haven't.
Time out. I think Ms. Torres and I, as we're sitting here kind of
Yeah, I
echoing
mean,
back and forth to each other, like
number one, yeah, I mean, thank you for showing up tonight. Your voice does matter. I do want to hear it. We do want to hear it. The entire board wants to hear it. We need to hear it. So we appreciate this opportunity. I know we're a little bit over, but I'm going to sit here and I'm willing to take more comments and more feedback. If you'd like to come up and share that with us, I'm not in a position to say we're going to extend the forum any longer. We also have emails at the school board that you can reach out to us or individually, but I'm going to sit here. So if anybody else would like to share concerns or comments, I'm happy to continue to take that and write it down.
Yeah, so there will be representatives, even when we close this forum. As she stated, some will still be available. And as I mentioned, the QR code is there. It's down here as well for anybody that wants to send written feedback, digital feedback. And once again, thank you and thank all of our partners that help make this happen, as well as Black Professional Network, Charlottesville Inclusive Media Partners, which is Charlottesville Tomorrow, Vinegar Hill Magazine, In My Humble Opinion talk show. So thank you all, and please stay engaged. We all are here because we care about the community and what's best for our students. So thank you.